Welcome to Capital Dateline Online. I'm with our guest, Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Well, Jim, there's been a flare-up in the legislature, and that's over the Florida retirement system. Tell us about that.
Well, the Florida House over the past few years has sought to change the Florida retirement system, which is for state employees, teachers throughout the state, hundreds of thousands of current and former retired employees. Basically, the House has been pushing over the past few years to try to move people out of the traditional pension system and move them into a 401k system. The House has argued that that's going to be necessary to shore up the long-term financial viability of the retirement system and avoid some of the problems that have happened in other states. We knew this issue was going to be out there during this session, but we hadn't seen it until the last week. The House rolled out a bill that sort of is a half step, if you will, to changing the pension system. It would require, if new employees come into the system and don't choose which kind of retirement system or retirement plan they want to go into, they would automatically default to a 401k system. Now, this is, while it is sort of a half step, any changes to the pension system are highly controversial. And the Senate, over the past few years, has blocked the House on this issue. There's been a sort of a coalition of Democrats, all the Democrats, and enough sort of moderate Republicans who quite often are being influenced or talking with particularly public safety unions who are very attuned to this issue. So they blocked it in the past in the Senate, but it's back. There also has emerged a sort of related issue that's gotten tangled up in it. The Senate president and some of the Senate leadership wants to pass a bill, in fact, they did pass a bill in the Senate, that would increase benefits for the families of first responders who are killed in the line of duty. At least part of the genesis of this is an officer, a deputy who was killed down in Orange County, and which is the home of the Senate president. Right. And the Senate took up the bill on the floor last week and passed it out unanimously. The rub is that the House has tried to connect that issue with the broader issues in the retirement system, and in doing so, it could create some conflict because the Senate may not want the broader changes, but it definitely wants these first responder changes. It was very interesting to watch that first responder bill because Senator Jeremy Ring, who is the sponsor of that bill in the Senate, got up and made very pointed comments about not connecting those issues as the House wants to do, even going so far as to say you shouldn't deal with these issues on the backs of dead law enforcement officers. So this could be something to watch over the last few weeks of session to see how this gets resolved. And the House looks like it's going to continue pushing for the changes it wants. And we'll see if these two issues remain tangled together.
The House proposes and the Senate disposes,
well,
maybe?
That's the way it's been on the pension issues in the past. But there's all kinds of dynamics that go into play in these last few weeks of session.
True. So we're also seeing talk about something Florida does probably need to pass this year, which is changes to the judgment, the actual death penalty sentences,
right.
Whether or not they're going to have a unanimous jury or a 9-vote jury.
Right. This is an issue that they really have to resolve this session. The pension thing has been out there for a few years, but death penalty, they have to change the laws regarding the death penalty if they want to continue having people sentenced to death. The U.S. Supreme Court in January, on the first day of the legislative session, of all things, ruled that Florida's death penalty sentencing structure was unconstitutional. Essentially, that ruling said that the Florida law gives too much authority to judges as opposed to juries, which violates the Sixth Amendment. That issue has, they're trying to resolve the specific issues in that ruling. But sort of a side issue or a related issue is whether Florida should require unanimous jury recommendations to judges before someone could be sentenced to death. In the past, Florida has only required juries to have a majority recommendation to judges. It could be 7-5, and then the judge could impose the death sentence. There's a lot of thought that based on the Supreme Court ruling last month, which was in a somewhat different issue, that the current system is unconstitutional in terms of the jury recommendations as well. So there's a debate now between the House and the Senate on whether the jury should have to be unanimous in recommending to the judge that someone be sentenced to death. The Senate has taken the position that yes, it should be unanimous, and that if they don't do that, they're just asking for more legal challenges down the road that would jeopardize further sentences. The House, on the other hand, has sided with prosecutors who are arguing that it should be a 9-3 recommendation should be acceptable. Also getting behind that has been Attorney General Pam Bondi. The argument by the prosecutors is that one lone juror should not be able to prevent a death sentence. And in fact, the prosecutors have become pretty aggressive about this. They brought up some family members of murder victims to testify last week. So this is going to be an issue that's going to have to be hashed out over the next few weeks. As I said, they pretty much have to somehow reconcile on this death penalty issue if they want death sentences to be imposed in the court system going forward, at least in the short term.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. For more news on government and public affairs, visit the Advances section of our website and keep coming back to CapitolDatelineOnline.com for daily postings.